It's now time to start processing some of the images. There's 3 images at the bottom here, which were all taken inside the Dale Princess. That's the little boat that goes across the island. And they, in theory, should all require the same amount of processing. So I'm going to select that one there, press the Control key, select that one and that one. And we can now open all 3 into Camera Raw. Control R. And we can see the 3 images there. Now we could work on them all together, or I'm just going to select that one down there. I think that's probably the most appropriate one to start working on. Then the settings that I've applied to this, I can then apply to these other 2 using the synchronization button up here. Okay, we'll do that later. When I first started doing these Photoshop talks, the menus that were listed along here would have been addressed in order along here. So you've got basic, tone curve, and as you click on these menus, the panel at the bottom changes to reflect the controls in each one. Detail, so that's sharpening and noise reduction. Okay, so but since Photoshop CS5, there has been the way Camera Raw processes these raw files has changed. They've updated the way the demosaicing and the linearization processes are carried out, and they've improved the way the raw files are processed. So if you're using CS5, you'll see an option for Process 2010, and that's the one that you should be using. Just ignore the blue areas and the red areas at the moment. That's because I've got the shadow clipping and the highlight clipping selected, which I'll be talking about in it shortly. If you're using CS6, then you need to make sure that you're processing using 2012 process. Otherwise you won't get the full functionality of all the tools within the panel here. So I'm going to start off with, notice that we've got the workflow options are all set, and so we're ready to go. One of the first things you would normally do is to try and get the white balance, that's the color tone within the image, correct. Now up here we've got white balance as shot. That's how the camera interpreted it. It could have been on auto white balance, or there could have been a setting, a deliberate setting in the camera, and that's how it's coming. I'm looking at the image and I'm thinking it's looking a little bit blue. I'm looking at the seagull and the sky here. It's looking a little bit blue. So we could try some of the presets here. Auto, that's where Camera Raw tries to give us the correct rendering of color. You've got daylight, which is a preset, and notice as I change these, the temperature and the tint changes appropriately. Okay, you can actually drag these to whatever you want if you wish to do it manually. Tungsten. Okay. So I'm going to go back to auto, but maybe not quite right. So we can go to this tool here, the white balance tool, and the idea of this is we need to select a neutral grey, not a white or a black, because there won't be enough tonal information in those areas for Camera Raw to produce a good balance. So I reckon the maybe the neck of this seagull should be a mid sort of grey. I'm going to click on that and see what happens. That looks fairly good, so I'm going to leave that as that is. Okay, so I've set the colour balance. These clipping warnings, I'll just unclip that, and you can see that the blue areas down here, they've disappeared, but that's indicating that these areas are actually pure black. This one up here, we can see the backpack of the lady here and the seagull. Okay, so that's indicating that we've got pure white there. And if I actually hover my little cursor over there, watch the RGB numbers here. As I go over the white, well, the pure red as it is there, it's got 255, 255 and 255. That means there's absolutely no tonal detail. And if I go over the blue areas, if I can find one, we've got one red 1, green 0 and blue 0. I might not be able to find anything, but it's basically indicating it's pure black. There's no tonal information there. But because it's a raw file, there is a lot of information there that we can't see. So part of what I'm going to be doing is to bring out the detail in the shadow areas and try and get back some of the detail in the highlights as well, make it a more balanced image. So we've set our process type, and I'm using CS6, so I need to be using 2012. Another feature is camera profile. Now it's normally set to Adobe Standard, but you've got other options, and this depends on the camera that you've used. Camera Faithful changes the way the tones and colours are applied. Landscape gives it a little boost. Just ignore the red and the deep blues, the highlight clippings. These are supposed to simulate what the camera would have done if you'd have dialed in these features inside the camera. So I normally have it on Adobe Standard. So, but those are options that you could apply if you so wish. Okay, so now we're going to move on to going through the various menus to try and bring back some of the tones and colour that I'd like to see in this image. And we'll do that, well, we'll start that in the next tutorial.